The night was cold, and the alien city smelled of smoke and wet metal. In a corner, near the edge of the old market, a pile of broken machines and garbage stood high like a mountain. Hidden between this trash were two small figures. They were alien girls, thin like dry sticks, their skin pale from hunger. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark, but no one cared. People walked past them, heads turned away, as if the girls were invisible. The younger one coughed, her small hands shaking. She whispered to her older sister, "I'm hungry. I cannot move anymore." The older girl pressed her lips together. She had no food, no blanket, not even clean clothes. Their clan had thrown them out, calling them useless and trash. Since then, they lived here, waiting for scraps, fighting off stray dogs for bones. Every sound in the alley was dangerous. The girls had learned to keep quiet. At night, drunk men sometimes came and kicked at them for fun. Shopkeepers threw rotten fruit at them, laughing for the world. They were not children, they were garbage. But that night was different. Footsteps echoed in the narrow street. Heavy boots, slow and steady. The older girl froze. Her first thought was, "Hide. Another cruel one is coming." She pulled her sister close and tried to cover her. With a torn piece of cloth, the footsteps stopped. A tall figure stood at the end of the alley. It was not an alien like the others. His shape was broader, his face different. The girls had never seen one in real life, but they had heard stories whispered on the streets. He was a human. The human looked at them for a long moment. His eyes didn't turn away like the others. He didn't spit or curse. He just stood there, holding a small metal box in one hand. The smell of food drifted from it: warm bread, roasted meat. Something rich that made the younger girl's stomach twist in pain. The older girl shook her head. "Don't look," she whispered to her sister. "If we stare at food, they hit us harder." But the human didn't move closer. Instead, he knelt down and placed the box on the ground. He pushed it gently across the stone floor, toward them. The smell grew stronger, filling the alley. The younger girl's eyes widened. She wanted to grab it, but fear kept her still. They had been tricked before. Once a man offered bread, then slapped it away when she reached out, laughing as she cried. The human's voice broke the silence, calm, low, different from the harsh tones they knew. "Eat, it's for you." The older girl's heart raced. She studied him carefully. His clothes were worn but clean, his hands strong but not cruel. His eyes had no hate, no disgust, only patience. Still, she didn't move. The human sighed softly. Then, in front of their shocked eyes, he opened the box again. He took a piece of bread, broke it in half, and ate a bite himself. Slowly, calmly. Then he placed the rest back inside and slid it closer. The younger girl whispered, "He is not lying." The older one's hands trembled. She reached forward, slow like a cornered animal. Her fingers touched the bread. No slap came. No laughter. Only silence. She pulled it back, broke it in two, and gave half to her sister. The moment the bread touched their lips, tears filled their eyes. It was warm, soft, real food. Not rotten, not stolen. For the first time in months, their stomachs didn't feel like empty holes. The human watched them quietly, his face unreadable. Finally, he spoke again, his voice gentle. No one should be treated like trash. The girls froze. No one had ever said those words to them. The night was still cold. The city still cruel, but something had changed in that alley. The human's small act was more than food. Eat was a spark, a light in their darkness and deep inside. The older girl felt something she thought she had lost forever. Hope. The next morning, the alley smelled of smoke again, but the memory of warm bread still lingered in the alien girls' minds. They woke shivering under their torn cloth. The younger one clutched her stomach, whispering, "I dreamt of food again." It was real. The older girl stared at the ground where the human had knelt. She wanted to believe he was different, but part of her feared he would never return. People passed them every day, promising nothing but cruelty. Why would a stranger, especially a human, care for two alien girls thrown away like trash? Then, faint footsteps echoed once more. Heavy, slow, steady. Her heart stopped. She grabbed her sister's hand. "It's him," she whispered. The human appeared again, carrying a small cloth bag. His face looked calm, his eyes steady. He knelt down at the same spot and opened the bag. Inside were fruits bright, round, fresh. Their scent filled the alley. The younger girl gasped. She had not seen such food since before they were thrown out. She looked to her sister for permission. The older girl held her back, still suspicious. The human noticed. He picked up a fruit, bit into it himself, and placed the rest back. Juice ran down his fingers, sweet and golden in the sunlight. Then he slid the bag forward. The older girl couldn't resist anymore. She took one fruit and handed it carefully to her sister. The younger girl bit into it, her face lighting up. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered, "It tastes like before. Like home." The human didn't smile, but his eyes softened. "Eat. Your bodies need strength." Silence filled the alley, broken only by the sound of chewing. For a few minutes, the world outside, the insults, the cold. The hunger did not matter. Finally, the older girl dared to speak. Her voice was small, rough from days without use. "Why? Why are you helping us?" The human looked at her directly. "Because no one else will." The answer shocked her. It was simple, but it felt heavy, like a truth she had been waiting for. But not everyone liked what they saw. From across the market, a group of alien men watched, their faces twisted with disgust. One of them spat on the ground. "Look at that human," he muttered. "Feeding trash. Wasting food on animals." Another man laughed. "Maybe he doesn't know what they are. Maybe he thinks they're worth something." The men approached, their boots loud against the stone floor. The girls froze, their fear returning instantly. The younger one hid behind her sister. The older one clutched the fruit tightly, afraid they would take it away. The human stood slowly, tall and steady, his shadow covering the girls. One of the men sneered. "Human, do you not understand? These girls are nothing. They are trash. Feeding them is like feeding rats. They will never thank you. They will only bite." The human's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "Then it is better to feed rats than to starve children." The words hung in the air like a blade. The alien men growled. One stepped forward, his hand reaching for the girls. The human's hand moved faster. He caught the man's wrist, twisting it until the alien cried out in pain. The others stepped back, shocked. "Touch them again," the human said quietly, "and I will not be so gentle." The men spat curses, but none dared to fight further. They backed away, muttering threats as they disappeared into the crowd. The girls stared at the human in awe. No one had ever defended them before. No one had stood between them and cruelty. The younger girl whispered, "He's not like the others." The older one couldn't speak. Her throat ached with unspoken words, gratitude, fear. Hope all tangled together. The human knelt once more, his voice softer now. "From today, no one will hurt you while I'm here." For the first time, the older girl believed it. The darkness of the alley still surrounded them. But with the human standing there, it no longer felt endless. The girls were still treated like trash by the world. But in that moment, with fruit in their hands and protection at their side, they began to feel something new, Like maybe they were not trash after all. Like maybe they mattered. The sun burned above the alien city. But inside the market alley, the air felt colder than ever. The two alien girls sat close together, still tasting the sweetness of fruit on their lips. Their stomachs were not full, but for the first time in months, they were not empty. They looked at the human with wide eyes. He stood tall, his coat dusty from travel, his face shadowed by the light. To them, he was both strange and familiar, and safety mixed together. The older girl finally gathered courage. Her voice cracked, but she forced the words out. "What is your name?" "Human." He hesitated for a moment, then answered, "Daniel." The younger girl repeated it softly, almost like a secret. "Dan. Eel." She smiled faintly, her teeth small and uneven, but her smile brighter than anything in the dark alley. But peace never lasted long here, in the market. Rumors traveled faster than fire. By afternoon, everyone knew about the strange human feeding trash girls. Shopkeepers whispered behind their stalls, pointing at Daniel. Some sneered. Some shook their heads. Foolish human. "He doesn't know what those girls are," one merchant spat. Another replied, "He'll regret it." No one saves trash. The girls didn't hear the whispers, but Daniel did. He felt the eyes following him. He ignored them, but he stayed close to the alley, guarding the sisters. As night fell, the danger grew heavier. Shadows stretched across the cobblestones. Drunk men staggered through the streets, searching for trouble. Stray animals fought over scraps. The girls clung to Daniel's presence, their only shield, but trouble found them anyway. 3 alien guards appeared, their armor clanking, their eyes glowing faintly under their helmets. They were not ordinary men, they were enforcers of the market. Their job was simple: remove anything unwanted. The leader raised his voice, sharp and cold. "Human, step aside. The law forbids trash from staying in the market after dark." The girls trembled, pressing into the corner. They had seen these guards before. Their iron sticks were heavy, and their punishments cruel. Daniel didn't move. His face stayed calm, but his fists tightened. "They are children," he said quietly. "Not trash." The guard laughed, a metallic sound under his helmet. "Children? Look at them. Thin, sick, worthless. They lower the value of this market. Step aside, or you will be treated the same." The younger girl whimpered. The older one tried to cover her, but her own body shook. She whispered, "Don't fight them, please." But Daniel didn't listen. His voice grew firm, louder. "If you call them worthless, then I call your law worthless. I will not move." The guards exchanged glances. The leader's grin faded into anger. With a signal, 2 stepped forward, lifting their sticks. The air grew thick with fear. The older girl's heart pounded. She thought of running, but her legs refused to move. She thought of begging, but her voice died in her throat. All she could do was watch as the world seemed ready to crush them again. The first guard swung his stick hard, aiming for Daniel's shoulder. But Daniel's hand shot up, catching the strike mid-air. The sound cracked through the alley like thunder. The human twisted, snapping the stick from the guard's grip. The alien stumbled back, stunned. The second guard rushed in, but Daniel moved faster. He struck with the broken stick, sharp and quick. The guard fell to his knees, groaning. The leader growled, drawing a blade. "You dare defy the law." Daniel's eyes turned dark, steady as stone. No law can make children into trash. The leader slashed forward, but Daniel blocked with the stick, sparks flying. The fight was brutal, short and loud. When it ended, the guards lay on the ground, groaning in defeat. The leader clutched his arm, glaring. "This isn't over, human. You've made enemies. He spat on the ground and staggered away with his men. Silence fell. The girls' breaths came in sharp gasps. Their eyes shone with shock and something more. The younger whispered, He fought for us. The older girl looked at Daniel with trembling lips. No one had ever risked their life for them, but this human had. And that made him more dangerous than the guards. More dangerous than the city itself, because now he had given them something they were never meant to. Have hope. The night stretched long after the fight with the guards. The two alien girls sat huddled close together, their thin arms wrapped around each other. The broken stick Daniel had used still lay on the ground. A reminder of what had happened. Daniel stood silently nearby, his chest rising and falling slowly. He wasn't wounded badly, but his knuckles were scraped, his coat torn. He didn't seem to care. His eyes stayed on the girls, as if making sure they were still breathing. The younger one finally whispered, They will come back, won't they? Her sister nodded. She knew the guards would not forgive humiliation. They would return with more men, stronger weapons. The alley was no longer safe. Daniel seemed to know this too. He crouched down so his eyes were level with theirs. You can't stay here anymore, he said calmly. They'll return. And worse, people may come. The older girl frowned. Then where do we go? We have nowhere. Daniel looked at them for a long time. His jaw tightened, then relaxed. He sighed, almost as if arguing with himself. Finally, he said, Come with me. The words felt heavy in the air. The girls blinked, unsure if they had heard correctly. With you, the younger one whispered. Daniel nodded. I have a place outside the market. It's not rich, not beautiful, but it's safe. The older girl's heart raced. No one had ever offered them shelter. Every hand they had known pushed them away. Every voice called them trash. Now this human wanted to take them in. Fear clashed with hope inside her. Could she trust him? Was it another cruel trick? She stared into Daniel's eyes, searching for lies. But his gaze was steady, strong, unshaken. She could not find cruelty there. Still, her voice trembled. Why? Why do you care? Daniel's answer came quiet, almost like a confession. Because I've seen what happens when no one cares. The older girl felt her throat tighten. She couldn't reply. Before dawn, Daniel led them through the city streets. He walked carefully, keeping them in the shadows, away from the eyes of merchants and guards. The girls clung to his coat, their steps unsteady but full of fear and hope. The city gave way to rough paths, broken stone, and finally, to the edge of a forest where tall trees stood against the pale morning sky. Birds called faintly, and for the first time in years. The girls smelled fresh air instead of rot. At the end of a narrow path stood a small house, simple but solid. Smoke rose gently from a chimney. It wasn't grand, but compared to the trash heap they had lived in, it was a palace. The younger girl gasped. This is yours. Daniel nodded. It's not much, but here, no one will call you trash. Inside, the house was plain. Wooden chairs. A table, shelves with tools and old books. But it was warm. A fire burned quietly in the hearth, filling the room with light. The girls froze at the doorway, afraid to step inside. They had never been welcome in any home. Daniel gestured gently. Come, it's safe here. Slowly, the older girl stepped forward. Her bare feet touched the wooden floor. She half expected someone to scream at her, to push her out. But nothing happened. The only sound was the fire crackling softly. The younger girl followed, her eyes wide. She reached out and touched the edge of the table, as if testing if it was real. Daniel brought out bread and a small pot of stew. The smell filled the house. He placed bowls in front of them, nothing fancy, but enough to make their mouths water. Eat, he said simply. The younger girl grabbed her spoon eagerly, but the older one hesitated. She looked at him again, still trying to understand. Daniel didn't force her. He only said, "As long as you are under my roof, you are not trash. You are guests." The older girl's hand shook as she lifted the spoon. The first taste of the stew nearly broke her. It was warm, rich, filling so unlike the rotten scraps she had grown used to. Tears burned her eyes, but she hid them quickly. The girls ate in silence, but inside their hearts, storms raged. For the first time, they had shelter, warmth, and someone who saw them as more than worthless. But in the darkness of the city they had left behind, angry voices were already rising. The guards had not forgotten their humiliation. The market would not forgive the human who defied its cruel law. And soon, danger would find its way to Daniel's little house. The fire crackled softly inside Daniel's small house. The alien girls sat near it, wrapped in old blankets he had given them. Their stomachs were warm with stew, and for the first time in years, they felt sleep pulling at their eyes without fear of being kicked awake or chased into the streets. But Daniel did not sleep. He sat by the window, staring into the darkness outside. The forest around his house was quiet, but he knew silence could be dangerous. He remembered the guards' threats, their promises of revenge. He had seen their hatred. It would not fade so easily. At midnight, the younger girl stirred. She opened her glowing eyes and saw Daniel awake, his face lit only by the faint firelight. "You're not sleeping," she whispered. Daniel shook his head. "Not tonight." The girl frowned. "Because of us." He looked at her, then nodded. "Because of you?" Her small hands gripped the blanket tightly. She didn't know whether to feel guilty or grateful. Finally, she whispered, "Thank you." Before Daniel could answer, the older sister suddenly sat up, her ears twitching. Her kind could hear farther than humans. She froze, eyes wide. "Someone's coming." Daniel stood at once. He opened the door and stepped outside. The cold air bit his skin, but he ignored it. His eyes scanned the tree line. At first, there was nothing but shadows. Then movement. 3 figures appeared, cloaked in black, carrying long blades that glinted under the moonlight. They were not guards. They were worse, hired men, bounty hunters. One of them called out in a low, mocking voice, "Human, you have something that doesn't belong to you." Daniel's voice was calm. "They belong to no one. They are free." The bounty hunter laughed. "Free? Trash like them? No human. They are property, and someone has paid us to return them." Inside the house, the girls huddled together, fear surging back into their bones. The younger one whispered, "They'll take us away." The older girl shook her head fiercely. "No, he won't let them." Outside, Daniel's stance was steady, though his heart beat heavy. He had fought guards before, but bounty hunters were skilled, ruthless, and paid well. The leader took a step forward. "Step aside, human, and no harm will come to you. Keep your pride, and you die tonight." Daniel didn't move. His voice sharpened. "Then try." The hunters rushed him like wolves. Daniel dodged the first blade, countered with a heavy strike that sent one crashing into the dirt. But the second was faster. The blade cut across Daniel's arm, leaving a dark stain. He gritted his teeth, refusing to fall. The girls cried out from inside, but Daniel shouted, "Stay back." His voice carried strength, a command that silenced their panic. The fight was fierce. Daniel blocked, struck, dodged, his body moving with raw survival instinct. One hunter fell unconscious under his heavy fist. Another staggered back, bleeding from a broken nose. But the leader was relentless, circling like a predator. "You're strong, human," the leader hissed, "but you're only one. You can't fight forever." Daniel wiped blood from his face, breathing hard. I don't need forever. I just need to keep them safe." The leader lunged again. Their blades clashed, sparks flying in the night. Daniel's strength met skill, and for a moment it seemed either could win. Then the sound of horns echoed in the distance. The hunters froze. The leader cursed under his breath. "Patrols. We can't be caught here." With a final glare, he spat at the ground. "This isn't over. They'll come for the girls again. And next time, we won't miss." The hunters melted back into the trees, leaving Daniel bleeding but standing. He staggered back inside, closing the door with heavy hands. The girls rushed to him, their eyes wide with terror. The younger clung to his coat. "They'll come again. They'll never stop." Daniel knelt down, even in pain. His voice was quiet, steady, like a promise carved in stone. "Then I will never stop either." The firelight flickered, painting shadows on the walls. The girls felt fear still pressing on them, but also something new, something stronger. For the first time in their lives, they felt what it was like to be protected, but outside. In the city beyond the trees, the storm was already building. The guards were angry. The hunters had failed. And those who called them trash were preparing something worse, something that could destroy not only the girls, but the human who dared to care for them. The morning after the attack was gray and silent. The forest outside Daniel's home carried a strange stillness, as if even the birds were afraid to sing. Inside, the alien girls sat near the fire, their eyes fixed on Daniel's arm. A strip of cloth was tied tight to stop the bleeding, but the wound was deep. The younger girl whispered, "You're hurt because of us." Daniel shook his head. "I'm hurt because of them, not you." The older sister looked down, guilt weighing heavy on her thin shoulders. "They will never stop. The guards, the hunters, they will keep coming. Why don't you leave us?" Daniel leaned forward, his eyes steady. "Because if I leave you, you won't survive. And I won't let the world decide that you don't deserve to live." The girls went quiet. His words struck something deep inside them. For so long, they had believed what others said, that they were worthless, unwanted, nothing. But Daniel's voice was different. Firm, unbreakable, still. The danger grew by noon. Smoke rose from the city, and word spread like fire through the forest paths. The guards had called a meeting. Merchants, hunters, and clans gathered, angry and loud. They shouted about the human who dared to defy the law, who dared to protect trash. Some wanted him punished. Others wanted the girls returned to the market, displayed as proof that no one could escape their place. The city was preparing to strike. Daniel sensed it long before he heard the rumors. He sharpened his tools, fixed the door, and checked the edges of the forest for signs of movement. He had been a soldier once, long before he came to this world. His body remembered the feeling of a storm before it broke. That night, the girls could not sleep. They huddled together, whispering in the dark. "Do you think he can fight them all?" The younger asked. The older sister shook her head. "No one can fight the whole city. Then what will happen to us?" The older girl had no answer. She only pressed her hand against her sister's, trying to hide her fear. But outside, Daniel was awake again. He stood by the door, staring into the night. He knew the truth. If the city came for them, he could not stop them all. Not with fists, not with blades. But he also knew something else. Sometimes survival was not only about fighting. It was about showing the world a truth it could no longer ignore. The first warning came at dawn. The sound of horns echoed through the forest, deep and angry. The girls froze, their eyes wide with terror. "They're here," the older whispered. Daniel placed a hand on each of their shoulders. His voice was calm, though his heart beat hard. "Stay inside. Whatever happens, do not run into their arms. The door shook with the sound of boots outside. Voices shouted. Orders were barked. Then the door burst open, splintering under the force. Dozens of guards filled the room, their armor gleaming, their weapons raised. Behind them stood merchants, their faces twisted with disgust, and hunters eager for revenge. The leader of the guards pointed at the girls. There, the trash belongs to the city. Step aside, human. Daniel didn't move. His figure stood between the girls and the world, unshaken. His eyes locked on the guards. No, they are not trash. They are children. The room erupted in anger. Shouts, curses, threats. One merchant threw a stone that struck the wall near Daniel's head. The girls clung tighter to each other, their small bodies trembling. The leader stepped closer, his voice sharp as a blade. You are one man against a city. What makes you think you can stop us? Daniel's voice thundered, steady and strong. Because I am not fighting for myself. I am fighting for them. And no army can take that away. His words cut through the noise like fire through dry wood. Some guards shifted uncomfortably. Even a few merchants lowered their eyes. The girls looked at him with tears shining in their faces, as if hearing something impossible, something they had never dared to believe. The leader snarled, raising his weapon. Then you will die for them. The girls screamed as the soldiers surged forward. But before blades could strike, a sound split the air, a deep, commanding horn, louder than all others. The crowd froze, turning toward the forest path. From the shadows, more figures appeared. Not guards, not hunters. Ordinary people, farmers, travelers, even children. They carried no fine weapons, only tools and torches. But their faces burned with anger at the cruelty they had witnessed. One of them shouted, "No more trash." They are children, like ours. The crowd's anger shifted. Murmurs spread. Some guards lowered their blades, confused. The storm had arrived, but not in the way the city had expected. And Daniel, still standing tall, felt something stir in the air, something stronger than any. Weapon changed. The air around Daniel's small house burned with tension. The guards had come with blades, the merchants with hate, the hunters with greed. But now, standing across from them were ordinary people. Farmers, travelers, mothers, even children's faces Daniel had never seen before. They carried no armor, only tools, sticks, and torches, but their voices rose strong. No more trash. One farmer shouted, "They are children." Another cried. The alien girls clung to each other inside the house, their hearts racing. For the first time in their lives, strangers were speaking for them, not against them. The guard leader growled. His face twisted with fury as he raised his sword. "Stand down, or you will all share the human's fate." But no one moved. The crowd only grew louder. Their voices mixed into a roar, shaking the forest with a force no blade could silence. Daniel stepped forward, blood still drying on his arm. His voice carried above the noise. "You see them as trash. But look at these people, do they agree? No, because they know the truth. You cannot call a child worthless. You cannot buy and sell life." The girls felt their throats tighten. Tears welled in their eyes, not from fear, but from something new, pride. The leader spat. Enough of this. He lunged toward Daniel, blade raised high. The strike never landed. The older girl, shaking but fierce, stepped from behind Daniel. She raised her small arms in front of him. Her body trembled, but her voice rang out. "Stop calling us trash. We are not garbage. We are alive. We are people." Gasps rippled through the crowd. For so long she had hidden her voice. Now it rang out like thunder. The guard froze, mid-swing, stunned. Daniel placed a steady hand on her shoulder, pride in his eyes. The younger girl stepped forward too, clutching her sister's hand. Her voice was softer but clear. "We are not rats. We are not property. We are children." The crowd erupted, their voices rising even louder. Some guards lowered their weapons completely, shame written on their faces. Others hesitated, no longer certain of their orders. The leader roared in anger, desperate to hold control. "Silence them." But before his command could spread, Daniel's fist struck. The blade clattered to the ground. The leader staggered back, defeated not by steel, but by the truth crashing down around him. The crowd surged forward, not with violence, but with defiance. They stood between the guards and the girls, their torches held high, their voices united. No more trash. They are ours to protect. The guards faltered. Their power crumbled in the face of numbers and conviction. One by one they retreated, dragging their wounded pride with them. The merchants hissed, but no longer dared to speak. The hunters disappeared into the trees, silence followed, broken only by the crackle of torches. The older girl stood shaking, her chest heaving. She couldn't believe what had happened. For the first time in her life, her voice had mattered. People had listened. The younger girl squeezed her hand, whispering, "We did it. They heard us." Daniel looked down at them, his eyes tired but burning with pride. "You are braver than any soldier today." The girls couldn't answer. They only pressed into his arms, their tears soaking his coat. But these tears were different, not of fear, but of relief. As dawn painted the sky gold, the crowd slowly left, returning to their lives. But something had changed. Word would spread faster than fire that two alien girls once called trash had spoken. And the city had listened. Inside the house, the fire still burned. The girls sat close to it, their blankets around them. Daniel sat beside them, his arm heavy with pain, but his heart lighter than ever. The older girl whispered, almost to herself, "We are not trash anymore." Daniel nodded. "No, you never were." The younger smiled, her eyes bright with hope. "Then, what are we?" Daniel thought for a moment, then answered softly, "You are children. You are sisters. And now, you are family." The girls leaned into him,